They didn't recognize him. So the pshat, the beard, many years have passed, they didn't recognize him, but it's more than they didn't recognize him, they defamed him. They tried to kill him. They didn't believe in his Torah. He's defamed, he's not recognized, his greatness isn't recognized, but he recognizes Am Yisrael, he recognizes his brothers, they don't recognize him. And then the Yahweh expounds on that idea. I had another idea that I heard, where we see something else about Rabbi Kahana, it reminds us of the biblical Yosef. What is that? So Yosef stands before Paro. Paro has a dream. Nobody knows the answer, right? Yosef says, I got the answer. Here's the answer. He gives the interpretation of the dream. And then he does something else. He goes on to give the answer. He goes on to say, and this is what you're going to do. He doesn't just say, okay, you're going to have 7 years of famine, 7 years of good, and then 7 years of famine. And this is what you're going to do about it. And then there's a lot of verses explaining, and he can have a plan to ration the food. That's what the rabbi was. He didn't just say, here's the problem. He gave an answer, and then he said, this is what we're going to do. That's the greatness. That's what you don't see today. That simple understanding. Here's the problem, and I'm giving the answer. I'm going to do this. That's Mashiach ben Yosef. That's what's missing today. This simplicity, this consciousness of just identifying the problem and saying, I have an answer. Not just clenching about the problem, but giving a concrete answer about the problem. That's Yosef. Finally, we're talking about the elections with Michael. Let's not forget 1988. 1988, the rabbi was going to get a lot of seats. Okay? A lot of seats. Anybody who's an Israel fan knows it was a groundswell. Because in 87 was the Intifada. And everybody was doing Kahana in 88. And in the end, we know he was banned. A quick story about the ban. The rabbi was banned. They said it was racist because he had a racist platform, right? And one of the things they said it was racist that in his platform, he said that you can't intermarry Gentiles and Jews. So it's racist. So after the Knesset banned him, the Supreme Court had to upheld the ban. So we were hoping the Supreme Court would overturn the Knesset vote. So we went around trying to sign up big rabbis. Please don't say Rabbi Gam is right, but just write that Jews and Gentiles not allowed to marry. That's really a Torah idea. It's in the Torah. And we went to big rabbis, and every rabbi was the same. Give me another 5 signatures and I'll sign. I don't want to be the first to sign. 7 signatures and I'll sign. 3 signatures, and then nobody signed, and the rabbi was banned. He would have been banned anyway, maybe, but we thought it might help in the Supreme Court. If they saw his signatures and a letter from a rabbi, it might help us. So that day when he was banned, 1988, it was banned. It was big news in Israel. I mean, a democratic country banning a party that's going to get 10 to 20 seats. And they were talking about it all the time. They interviewed the whole world, they talking heads, explaining why you have to do it. And then they interviewed the head rabbi of Israel. He said, Rabbi Kahana is a great Talmid Chacham, and everything he says is according to Halacha. So Rabbi Kahana heard it on the radio. He said, I needed a letter, not a eulogy. Now after the ban, I remember the feeling among our activists. I mean, we wanted to jump off buildings. I mean, people how hard they worked. I mean, for 4 years, the rabbi didn't just give a rally before election time. He was giving rallies every single day in the streets. These people were pasting up all night because the leftists would take to the posters. They paced up, so the rabbi came to the city, to the neighborhood, people would know about it. And then they just banned them like that. It was not fair. And people were really, really upset. But the rabbi comes out of the Supreme Court, they're singing. And people are there saying, well, he had to sing. What do you want him to do? He's going to say, he has to show he's not upset. But as somebody in the yeshiva at that time, I want to explain to you why he really was singing. And I want to explain a deeper understanding of Rabbi Kahana's mission. And this is himself teaching us certain principles. He talks about Ezekiel the prophet. Ezekiel the prophet was sent by Hashem to prophesy. And Ezekiel doesn't want to do it. Who wants to do it? I mean, the prophet for him was Yirmiyahu. You know what Yirmiyahu went through? He went to jail, he was in the mud, he was terrible. Every prophet didn't want to do it. From Moshe Rabbeinu, nobody wanted to do Shaliach, because it's a difficult task. So Hashem says to Yechezkel, he says, Listen, he says whether they listen or they don't listen, you're going to go, so they know there was a prophet amongst them. They're not going to listen, but they have to know there was a prophet amongst them. Now, what's the deeper understanding of that? This is not to be explained. Rashi says the same thing. Even if they don't listen, they'll be toilet. Good will come out of it. Why? Keep a vote for renewed. Because when the bad things start to happen, they'll know a prophet was amongst them, and he warned them, and they didn't listen. And then people won't have doubts that maybe a Kodesh Baruch isn't okay. In other words, there has to be a voice of truth saying this is what you're going to do, and if you don't think you're going to get punished, there has to be that voice, because when the punishment comes, he'll say, hey, you know, he told us, we didn't know. So David is by you do that, that's how the rabbi showed at a deeper level when he was about. He's that prophet who's going to say the truth, whether they listen or not listen, but it has to, the Jewish idea has to be out there. It has to be on the table, so people have a decision to reject it or to accept it. And so I say to you that on this day, from Kahan's your side on the yeshiva, that, you know, we have a habit of saying, I used to say it all the time that, you know, forget about the past, this is the future, we got to push ahead, and what's past was past, and let's not dwell on memories, nostalgia. But I say this, I say it's very important to remember, I say it's important to remember for the younger kids, many of the yeshiva kids who lost their way. There's a problem with the youth, the religious youth, they lost their way. Because whatever, they're not turned on by Judaism. But if they can learn the Torah of Rabbi Kahana, who said it all, and this is great for Hebrew, he said it, he put the simple verses in the Torah, he said it on a level anybody can understand it. That if lo Torishim those if you don't throw out the inhabitants of the land, those that you leave will be thorns in your eyes. Simple verses from the Torah, on a level anybody can understand it. That's a tremendous thing. That's a tremendous thing. I am not even know. There was somebody who said it. What's happening is not a surprise. It's not a sudden thing. Rabbi said what happened is happening. That in itself is a powerful message. I am not even